Commission, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. We have a fairly full agenda, and it has been requested that we really hug these microphones tonight so that we can hear. So just kind of keep that in mind. And I'll do the same. Feel free to remind me. We have the invocation or thought by Commissioner Bailey and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Jorgensen, and we'll go that far.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. My thought is somewhat surrounded some other planning commission and consequences recently in the state of Utah. I've been seeing comments online. It's not in North Ogden. I think we all know what I'm talking about, but it just brought the thought of maybe unintended consequences. So we have a heavy burden on our shoulders to do our best to interpret our code, our zoning code, our ordinances, and make a recommendation to our elected officials. But with everyone here today voicing an opinion, it does add to the conversation to ensure that we get it right according to our code, according to our citizens, and importantly, according to property owners in North Ogden as well. So there's just a really interesting balance there. And if you look at some of these other, consequences of decisions that you see around the state, digging a little deeper, there's a little bit of a history of unintended consequences that sometimes lead to those things you didn't see coming. So we do our best to understand our precedent that we set, but our hands are sometimes tied by a precedent that was set before us. So that's kind of my thought for today.
Thanks.
Okay. Everyone would join and rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Bailey. Thank you, Commissioner Jorgensen. Roll call today. We'd like to excuse Commissioner Green. She was previous notice she won't be here tonight. And I would look for a motion to approve the minutes of the May 20th meeting, 2026.
So moved.
Second. Jorgensen. All right, with Commissioner Swanson, motion to approve the meeting minutes, and Commissioner Jorgensen seconded the motion. Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Any conflict of interest or ex parte communications or disclosures? Okay. Look at us cruising through it. All right. We'd like to open up for public comments for items not on the agenda. These are specifically comments that maybe don't fit in with the agenda tonight. I wanted to read this. What I read now will go through not only comments that will be said now, but during the public hearing as well. Time is made available for anyone in the audience to address the commission concerning matters pertaining to city business. Citizens will be asked to limit their remarks to 5 minutes. We'll have a timer just in case. Any materials that are displayed or referenced with pictures, written materials, part of the record, and must be left with the commission. Speakers are required to have signed in at the door and will state their name and city residing before beginning remarks. If you agree with the previous speaker, state your agreement to avoid repetitious remarks. Speakers shall address the commission from the podium or microphone and shall address all comments to the Planning Commission. With that being said, find first page again. Any public comments for items not on the agenda? Yep.
I've only done one other of these meetings. Anyway, I'm Janine McKnight. I live here in North Ogden, and I have lived here since August of 1993. When I moved in, there was only one block above us on the hill and everything was mountain. So I have seen numerous changes, many of which, of course, have made it more noisy and busy. And some of that in the name of progress is good, and some may not be. So, in items not on the agenda, I didn't see anything about the convenience store on 3100, and that's what I wanted to address. I wanted to find out in coming tonight what the process is of zoning and how you rezone, if that's put to a vote of the citizens, or you just hear comment and then you make a vote and it's your majority. How is that done?
You wanna-
So you'll see it happen tonight,
Okay,
not for that property that you're talking about, but essentially someone creates a petition, comes before this group, and this group makes a recommendation to the city council. The city council is the one that has a final vote,
They're the
but
one.
this is where the public hearing is held that gives you the chance to make comment during the public hearing. City council does allow for public comments, just not during the agenda item when they hear any things like that. So.
okay. So then not on the agenda, since it's not, then I want to make, so I have to go to a city council meeting as well? Or you can pass the word.
So when the rezone request comes, it will come here first for a public hearing. And then there'll be a city council meeting after. So potentially there's 2 more meetings to come to.
Okay, so it won't make any difference if I voice my opposition right now?
It always helps just in case maybe
Okay.
you're out of town that day. or-
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that I would like to do, because I live above 3100 and, I've seen all the changes with the houses being, the training of the fire department and now the road being closed. And I would just hate to see residential turned commercial. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alex Hoff. I do live here in North Ogden. I lived here the first time in 2013 to 2016, and I'm back since 2020. And I also have a concern with this convenience store at that property. I may or may not be here for the next meeting, so I'm going to voice my concern. First of all, I think it's a really bad idea that will bring more traffic up there. I don't know if you're aware that there is a high school and elementary school and other schools, so that's a very busy road. For those of you who may not know, the Utah drivers here do not like to stop for red lights. I don't know how many times I've actually tried to cross that intersection when I had the walking sign for me to go through, and some idiot's going to come through and try to run me over. Also realize that there's a lot of the cross-country track teams also use that road to run across and go across that intersection. So I think this would be a very dangerous idea and would endanger a lot of kids and adults and that sort of thing. So just please keep that in mind when you are looking into this conversion. I also agree with her that we need to keep the residential as residential. And the fact that you have another Maverick less than a mile away, it makes absolutely no sense unless somebody's just trying to make some money on the city council to do this, because it really makes no sense for a business to be that close to another business. In fact, if you look at Radio Shack, that's one reason why they went out of business, because they had too many businesses next to each other. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I've written down my comments so that I could keep them concise. My name is Mary Ann Varner. I am standing here tonight alongside my neighbors to speak on behalf of the future of North Ogden. We are here to present a community first vision, one that prioritizes long-term character of our neighborhoods over short-term commercialization. Those of us who live here know that North Ogden is a rare sanctuary. It's peaceful, quiet, and exceptionally safe. There is a deep pride of ownership in our neighborhoods. People pay a premium to live here, to retire here, to raise their families here, because they want the specific quality of life that we offer. We have room to breathe. We have stunning views of the mountains and valley and passing wildlife through our properties. This isn't just a place where people buy a starter home. This is a place where people plant lifelong roots, where neighbors walk and talk, and where they choose to spend the rest of their lives. Now we often hear that commercial development is about convenience. But let's look at the reality. We can already reach a gas station and a grocery store in less than 5 minutes. Our daily needs are fully met. As residents, we are more than willing to drive an extra 3 to 5 minutes for minor conveniences if it means keeping commercial noise, bright lights, and traffic out of our residential backyards. For us, preserving our quiet culture far outweighs raw proximity. Bringing high-density commercial projects directly adjacent to residential homes introduces 3 severe risks. First, traffic. Few roads lead into our quiet community. Forcing commercial traffic onto an already busy, strained intersection is a major safety concern. Second, youth and safety. Placing high-density commercial hangouts next to homes encourages late-night loitering, drawing kids away from their homes and schools. And third, direct residential impact. Citing these projects right next to homes degrades our property values, ruins our dark night skies, and takes away our peace of mind. To capture the emotional heart of this issue, I want to share a sentimental echo by so many of our community. People choose to buy, retire, and stay here for life because of what we have. We pay more to protect our peace, safety, and mountains. Let's not lose the culture that makes North Ogden special. To the members of the Planning Commission, you live here too. You chose North Ogden for the exact same reasons that we did. You appreciate the quiet streets, the mountain views, and the safety of our town. Tonight, we look to you to represent us, to protect our neighborhoods, and to defend the unique character of the place we all call home. Thank you for your service to our community.
My name's Kevin DeFries, and I'm a resident of North Ogden. I've lived here for over 40 years. And I'm also one of the neighbors that live up above 3100. And Washington Boulevard is our direct way in and out to our homes. Otherwise, we got to go over and go through Pleasant View to get there. And when I heard about this commercial development, I had a big concern about that, knowing that the junior high would bring a lot of foot traffic through there. The high school, if you've ever gone down to the Maverick on their lunch hour, it's hard to get in and out of that bigger intersection, get in and out of those places. And so before they put the turn lane down there by McDonald's, there would be sometimes I would sit to try to get down through 2 traffic lights to get in and out. And I just don't want to see commercial development cause a real problem and bottleneck for North Ogden City. That road is a main thoroughfare for a lot of us that live up there above 3100. And I just think commercial development would just hinder that. And I'm here tonight because I know that you guys don't make the laws, the city council does, but they take under advisement what you guys discuss and do. We are going to have a lot of traffic in North Ogden with some of the apartment buildings going on. And over there by the old Ben Lomond Golf Course, when those homes go in, they're going to come into North Ogden and use the grocery stores and the different restaurants that are there. And just if we can avoid bottlenecks, I realize that, commercial growth brings revenue for the city, which is always good. I'm one of those people that would rather not see them raise our property taxes. And so cutting costs and keeping our property taxes out of it, it takes commercial growth to help do that. I realize that. But when it comes to traffic, that should be a big priority to making sure we can get in and out of the city without having problems. And there's other places for commercial development, I think, that would bring revenue to the city, but it would be in a safer area than near junior highs, grade schools, and high school traffic. And so I'd appreciate when this comes up in future meetings that you would understand that the citizens, and it's not just me, my neighbors all around me, I've talked to them and they're all in agreement. They don't like it. And we just want to let our voice be known. And thank you for your time.
We go ahead and assume that pause is an end to public comments for items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody online that would like to make no hand raised?
No hands raised, yeah.
Great. All right. We will move to item 5 on the administrative side, site plan review for Cooperstown Commercial Building. Consideration and action for a site plan approval for the Cooperstown Commercial Building. Presenter Ryan Nunn.
Thank you, Planning Commission. This site plan review for the Cooperstown Commercial Building is part of a larger development in the master plan community zone for Cooperstown. That includes a development agreement as well. So the review includes the code for the language in the development agreement and then the code for the master plan community zone. In the staff report, essentially there was a building permit for this. We realized based on the development agreement, it needed its own site plan review. So that's why it's being brought forward to the Planning Commission. The language is pretty clear on what's required for the commercial building. In this master plan community, all the buildings need to look very similar. The language stated in the development agreement is approximately 40% brick and 60% cement board siding. Based on the elevations of this commercial building, they're proposing a full, apparently 100% brick veneer. That'll be something for Planning Commission to consider. Staff's opinion is that that's actually that would be an improvement for the building to have that full brick exterior. It's meeting everything else based on heights and setbacks. A couple items to note in regards to parking for the commercial building. They're proposing I think it's 17 parking stalls. Or one thing I should clarify, there's no use known for these commercial stalls that they're building. So staff reviewed it just generally as an office use, which required one stall per 250 square feet of the whole floor area. And so they are short with the stalls that are being provided on the north and east side. But based on the DA, where it states that all the parking in this area is generally to be shared, we recommend that there should be a shared parking agreement provided just to ensure the neighboring parking stalls can be used by the commercial use. The other thing is the stalls were short. The DA and our land use codes say that parking stalls need to be 9 feet by 19. They showed 9 by 18 feet. We've made that a note to the developer, and they're working on fixing that. So they will meet that 9 by 19 and also maintain the required 24-foot drive aisle. But we recommend to have it as a condition of approval for this site plan. Finally, in the development agreement, or sorry, 2 more things. There is a monument side needed for the whole development. That is the development agreement specifies that needs its own permit. So we want, and it's shown to be on the same lot as the commercial building. So we recommend that it's a condition of approval that it receives its own application. and the DA does say it needs to come before Planning Commission. The other two are building lights. We recommend that be reviewed at the time of the building permit to ensure they meet the development agreement and our city code in regards to directional and floodlights and all those standards. And then the last is the development agreement was specific that the commercial use needs a bike rack on, I believe on Washington Boulevard side, and that was lacking. They do show improvements to a bus stop that include a bike rack, but to meet the DA, we recommend that an additional one be provided at the building. Yes, those they meet the majority. Those are the few conditions of approval recommend. Otherwise, staff does recommend approval of this and recommends the planning commission discuss. And I'm happy to help answer any questions. Any questions you have. Thanks.
So is there any businesses that would go in that would increase the need for additional parking spots?
So that's the intent of getting the shared parking agreement, is if there is a use that based on our parking code would need more parking stalls, they're able to use the neighboring parking in the guest parking for the residential side as part of the commercial use, where they just don't have the space to have more parking.
But if
On this
they're
lot.
like late night businesses, that would impede on parking for the residents of the housing, right?
So the development agreement specified how many parking stalls the whole development needs. And so that's just kind of the constraint, is as long as they provide that many, they're meeting the DA, right? What that requirement, even if there's a use that maybe requires more. So really we're recommended to do the shared parking agreement. So any future uses, they are aware that that's an issue with the property and but they have that, I guess, they have that option, or they have that, trying to think of the word, remedy with the parking issue. And
But the-
then they're right next to 1500 North, which would allow for on-street parking there, but they just would not meet the off-street parking.
So the residential buildings, are they already approved?
No, we do have a few going through building permit currently.
Are they gonna be sell or lease? They're gonna be lease.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that, I believe, if I'm correct, the shared parking agreement is within the developer. It's the same developer, right?
Yes.
So he's sort of agreeing to build the parking spaces later when whatever buildings go up, go up. Is that-
Exactly.
Okay.
And then if a more intense use comes in, like a tenant improvement that pushes the parking demand beyond that allotted, that gets addressed later in a building permit. Does that make a tenant improvement building permit? Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Okay.
The development agreement requires 304 parking stalls in total, correct? For the commercial and residential use? That's what's in the staff report.
Yeah, I think that it was, yes, there was a number, I think just for residential, and then, but then there's language that states
Oh, I see. It is
Should be-
304 for residential and then additional for the commercial.
and that they should be shared, essentially.
Commercial is short 2 spots, right? It's supposed to be 19 for the square footage.
Just looking at it as what it is, as potentially just office space, it is short
Depending what goes in the office space.
right.
Ryan, I had a question regarding future uses in this commercial. What if a food service wants to go in there? is there room to provide for grease traps and things like that?
I
For
would
the utilities, if they,
I would say based on these concerns with parking, that might prohibit that type of use. And
Okay.
so they would not move in. I know you can install grease traps later as part of a tenant improvement, but speaking with the developer, they recognize that the development agreement and these kind of constraints will really filter who will want to move in and occupy this building.
I tend to recall as this was going before the planning commission earlier under Cooperstown, that that commercial building possibly had a second story? Or was it always a single story,
It just had a height limit.
a height?
And so I think this is just, they had a height and then the building materials. I don't, I don't recall the development agreement having an exhibit of the commercial.
But this is consistent with what was originally proposed?
Correct, yeah, they're under that height limit and they have the needed materials as that was specified in the development agreement.
And in front of this, on Washington Boulevard, they'll be with the commercial installing the required street lighting and street trees and those required improvements, the wider sidewalk.
Yes, yeah, so I think our 10-foot sidewalk's already in.
Okay,
And then I don't know if I included they do have a landscape plan that is meeting what was approved.
okay.
Thank you.
Right, if there's no more questions for Ryan, let's discuss.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have concerns about the parking with that many people already. And depending on what goes in that commercial building, will make residents unhappy if they can't find parking because businesses in there are taking up spots that could potentially be theirs. I guess I wouldn't have a problem because during the daytime, most people are at work. So if there's businesses, they're day businesses, but those that go after, let's say 5 o'clock, have the potential to impede on parking stalls for people that are living there. And I think that plays a part in how they feel about living there. And so I guess that's my concern. Because looking at the plans, it looks like a large project. It looks like a lot of people are going to live there.
It's hard to discuss specific commercial projects that are going in there when we're just talking general
Yeah.
commercial issues. So,
But I would think that the size of the offices would sort of dictate the type of business that goes into that office.
Yeah.
And therefore would dictate the parking. And I would think that if the parking in general, like when it's all done, if the parking meets the requirements as an entire entity, then we're 2 stalls short on the first part. You know what I'm saying? Challenge me, please. Like I'm really trying to piece this together in my brain because I think that when it's all said and done, they'll meet the parking requirements and there will probably be some people parking on top of each other maybe during the day or whatever, saying, hey, this is, whose space is this really? But once it's in, that should be alleviated, possibly.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
as long as, I mean, I don't like to see more hard service. So I'm not looking to add more hard service where we don't need it. If there are guest spots in that apartment complex that they're going to designate that can be guest for the commercial and guest for the apartments, that would then meet the requirement for both. I think I'd be okay with it. I mean, it is 2 spots. I see the concern though. I mean, if it's an office building and you have a bunch of employees that are coming in and then you use all 17 spots, you have nowhere for business patrons to come in.
Is there, Ryan, can I still ask you a question?
Hmm.
Is there enough parking on the street that kind of offset that? That you're aware of? Did
Well-
they like talk about that?
Based on the calculation, they're just 2 stalls short. And so that can, based on the development agreement saying stalls should be shared between uses.
But if they decide to park on the street, is there anything to prevent customers from parking on the street?
No. No.
So there's enough room on the side of those streets to handle people parking and driving.
Yeah, 1,500, and I think technically even Washington, you could park, not in the not in front of the bus stop, but those are both public roads and would allow or on-street parking to alleviate the specific commercial lot shortage. But it's difficult because the development agreement kind of recognizes it and then just states that they'll be shared between the uses.
Yeah.
Does the on-street parking consideration include wintertime when we have no on-street parking ordinances in the city? I'm thinking of another business that's on Washington, a little bit north of this that uses a lot of on-street parking and has come before city council to ask for variances on that parking because they can't in the wintertime. They've been granted variances to allow parking where you ordinarily wouldn't in the winter. So how does that play into this?
Yeah, those wintertime parking restrictions would apply here as well. That's why really we recommend the developer, even though it's right now it's with themselves, establish that shared parking agreement. So whatever use goes in there is aware that there's short parking, but there is ways to alleviate it, that there are these additional parking stalls in the residential guest parking or wherever it is.
The other thing we don't have for tonight is the sign design. That's part of this.
Correct.
So without that, I mean, I think it'd be hard to approve it anyways, right? If we don't know what the sign, if it doesn't,
The monument sign is for the whole
right?
residential and commercial and would need to be its own permit.
Okay, so it's a
regardless.
separate permit. Okay,
It
I
is.
thought it was falling under the same one.
It is its own permit, and then the development agreement says that permit, which usually is just staff approval, does also go
Okay.
to planning commission.
Thank you for,
But that sign is on this property. It is on this plot.
They're showing on the site plan that it would be
Okay.
on the corner of
Oh.
1500 in Washington.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see it. Thank you.
Does anyone have concerns about building materials? It sounds like they're going all with
Yeah, it looks
brick.
Like that.
I liked it.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I thought the design of the building looked really good.
Back to the parking for a moment. You mentioned earlier that the parking spots that they have marked out on the site plan are 9 by 18 feet, not the required 9 by 19.
It was 9 by 18, correct?
9 by 18. So correcting that to the 9 by 19, which is one of the conditions that is recommended, how will that affect spacing? It sounds like they did 9 by 18 because that's what space allowed. Is that going to reduce the number of parking spaces? Is it going to negatively affect or impact?
No, speaking with the developer, they missed that requirement, and so they understood they needed to fix it.
So the space is there.
They have the space.
Okay.
They just needed to fix it.
9 by 19 is more odd than 9
Right.
by 18.
Right.
Yeah.
And 1500 North, how much of that will be developed with this? It's done, right? Okay, thanks. I
They've
just
built
wanted
the
to
whole
make sure.
thing, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
There's no dumb questions.
Yeah, no, that one was dumb. Coke hasn't kicked in yet.
And
I-
Chair, just one thing on that, the property that's south of 1500 was originally contemplated in the development agreement back in 2021 with a negotiation between Ogden City and North Ogden City to align the boundary on the southern side of this project, and that failed. And so right now there's a strip of land in Ogden and then 1500 North and then North Ogden. So the development agreement was amended in 2023 to reduce the parking number, reduce the total number of residential units to just those on the northern portion of 1500 North. And that slightly amends the DA, but this building C is required to come up out of the ground as part of phase one, which includes the residential units. So it's a requirement for the developer, and the development agreement through city council in 2021 approved the site plan of the commercial buildings. So those have already been issued building permits and they're coming up out of the ground. There's footing and foundations right now, but they won't be able to receive certificate of occupancy until the commercial building is constructed. So this is the next step. And then the development agreement also states that the landscaping plan will come back to planning commission. So establishing the commercial building, the remainder of the parking, making sure that they hit their 20% landscape requirement per the DA. There's one more set of plans that'll come to you. And we sort of wanted to put the monument sign and the landscaping plan together. So you get all of the functional structures come up out of the ground together. And then planning commission would have an opportunity to review the landscaping plan, content of that, sidewalk, streetscape, and monument sign all together as one package, is the way we discussed it with the developer. That was our recommendation. So this can be, there's nothing in the DA that says all of it has to be approved. It's just planning commission has to approve these individual components. And so we presented to you tonight the commercial portion so that the developer can continue moving forward with the project and building their apartments.
Can you pull up page 21 real quick, just so I can make sure? It's I think it's further down than that.
So I just have the site plan documents, what?
Okay.
21.
It's
is
the one,
General.
it has the overlay of the whole property. Yeah, one more page. Go to the next page. Is this on building A? Are those covered spots that are directly behind the commercial? Is that what that's supposed to be?
That X above it.
Yes.
Like where 11 and 5 are, those are covered spots, right? So the garage or
Mhm.
so just so the others can see that the extra spots are going to be catty corner to where the commercial building is, since we were talking about parking.
Yeah.
They won't be directly behind them. You're going to have to.
So where John's cursors are, that's actually garages. And then to the north is covered spaces there along the north side. And typically those are leased as part of the apartment.
Right.
You know, I don't know, I'm not the apartment manager, right? But those spaces are leased as part of the unit that you lease would be a covered space. So it'd be where the word phase 2 is, east of building B. And then you have the whole parking lot adjacent to the tot lot in the center. There would be some amount of shared parking between them. And even most of our office uses, if you go up and down, whether it's dental offices or insurance offices, title offices, parking is not maximized in most of those areas. We're generally over parked, I would say, in most of our areas. So while there's 2 spaces that we think of when we go general office that are missing, I think that it's reasonable to assume there will be some sharing of parking, but that's self-limiting. And the developer understands that the uses would be reviewed at the time of business license. And if there isn't enough parking, they have to produce shared parking, dedicated parking, or that business license fails.
Not a concern for me. Like I said, I wanted to bring it up because just to make sure others didn't think it was directly behind.
Right, the shared stuff.
The shared will be a little bit away from the commercial area.
Yep.
Okay. I would entertain a motion if we're done. I would also stab at that motion if you'd like. A motion to approve the site plan for Cooperstown Commercial Building as a consideration, or excuse me, on condition of approval that we lengthen those stalls to 19 feet. We see the monument on its own application, and the landscape plan, the monument and landscape plan on its own application. And we see building lights and bike rack.
I'll second that.
Okay. So I motion to approve it. Commissioner Settlemeyer seconded the motion. Let's have a roll call vote. Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Settlemeyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jorgensen.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So that passes. Let's move to item number 6, zoning map amendment 2026-6, 2742 North, 400 East. Rezone property from residential city center RCC to small lot residential zone R15 as a fill-in project. This will be a public hearing. We'll have a recommendation by Scott Hess, Community and Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Chair. So we have an application by John W. Hansen for a rezone of this 1.22 acre property. It has 2 existing homes on the west side near Washington Boulevard that have frontage there. They're perceived to be on their own individual lots. They're just 2 standalone single-family homes, but they have forever been on one single property. There's been several conversations with the property owner and the developer about what to do with those homes, assumptions about traffic circulation in the area and zoning densities generally. And the application was made for a small lot residential R15 rezone that would run on a private drive on the south. So your net increase in units as proposed would be 5 units tucked into that space between the property lines north to south. There is not currently an extension of 2700 contemplated to go west and connect to Washington Boulevard. And this is an interesting one when you look at the general plan guidelines, the surrounding properties, and what to do with zoning. So this particular property is functionally adjacent to several civic and commercial uses, both north and south on Washington Boulevard. The property west across Washington Boulevard is currently zoned residential R4 multifamily, even though the majority of it is used as office space. You have residential city center, which is a makeup of apartments, old historical agricultural properties, small lot, single family, duplexes. It's a really wide variety of uses. And then the general plan in this area, which is the downtown neighborhood, states in one of its goals under encouraging multifamily in the downtown area and for areas to the west along 2700 North to show higher densities on the future land use map to the west along 2700 North. So as this is an infill property, as it's single family residential, it would meet the concept plan as designed meets the requirements of the residential R15. If the fire department and the city engineer will sign off on the private drive, staff's recommendation is that this be found largely in compliance with the general plan, in conformance with the neighborhood, and our recommendation is to recommend approval to the city council to rezone the property to residential R15. It's a public hearing. It's been noticed as a public hearing with mailers that have gone out. So that'd be part of the process. And then Planning Commission, we also have the applicant, John Hansen, here to represent the project as well. And happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Scott? Nope. Yes. Okay. No questions. let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Invite the applicant to come up and then we'll have comments. Applicant first and then comments.
And Chair, just one thing
Yes.
really quickly is that while rezone applications often come with a concept plan, the Planning Commission's function tonight is to apply a land use zone to the property. So concept plans are helpful to look at, but it wouldn't be approving this particular plan. This is one layout based on the property if it were to be rezoned as R15. So just to make sure that, we're not approving a subdivision or approving the concept plan. It's just applying a land use code.
So these lots could be different.
The lots, the layout, all of it could be different dependent on.
And would that come back to here or would that, okay.
Applicant, would you like to come up?
I'm John Hanson from 1165 West, 4000 North in Pleasant View. I'm representing Doug Young, who has bought this property from the Shoops, a longtime name in North Ogden. Scott, will you put that picture? What this Mr. Young would like to do is build single-family homes there. And the frontage, I believe, is between 48 and 60-foot frontage. The homes would be approximately 2,500 square feet on 2 levels. I don't know what else to tell you. The drawings of them are terrific. It would really enhance that neighborhood. Our problem has been to Washington Boulevard, and Scott's pointed out that it's better just to dead end it and not complement or what's the word I want? Compromise the Washington Boulevard and all the traffic that goes there. So we thought about putting that on the north end, close to 2,700. Our engineer is here, Mr. Flitt. There's a 7-foot slope from north to south, and it makes more sense to have the retention basin down on the southwest corner. So one of our questions, we'd like to see if you'd rezone that to the 5,000 square foot lots is what to do with lot 1. That home is uninhabitable, basically. I have not been in it, but I've been told by the manager that they won't even lease it. So we're trying to decide whether we're going to raise that or maybe get another new building there. I'm not sure. So I don't know if you have any questions. It's pretty straightforward. There's one home on 27 on 450 East that faces west. That's the only home that would even be close to it. Along the other south boundary is the Baptist Church and Fields. And then there's another home north of lot 1 that faces 450 East also. So we hope that you'd consider that. We need some smaller homes for some families to come in there. And I think that's what your city center ordinance says. They'd like to, maintain the city feel in there. Any questions? Now talk loud, Lauren.
John, would you be building the buildings?
What's that?
Would you be building the buildings?
I will not be building them, no, but I will be over the construction. There's several builders that would like to build those buildings.
Okay, and they're going to be for sale or owner occupied?
Yes, not rentals.
Okay.
Owner occupied. This is really embarrassing for me.
Sorry. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, John, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Trevor Davis. I'm a resident here in North Ogden. I'm not here to debate the city's growth but to formally place my existing property rights into the legislative record. My property operates under current agricultural allowances, and I own and keep horses on this land. I want to explicitly clear for the record that my right to maintain livestock is a legally protected, vested, non-conforming use. Regardless of what happens to the neighboring parcel tonight, my agricultural rights are grandfathered in under Utah law. Because this rezone introduces high-density residential lots directly against my fence, the city is actively creating a future land use conflict. To mitigate this, Utah's right to farm laws are very clear. Non-residential encroachment cannot declare a pre-existing agricultural operation a nuisance due to standard dust, odor, or noise. Therefore, if the commission chooses to approve the rezone tonight, I ask that you protect both myself and the city from future litigation by attaching 3 mandatory conditions to the development agreement. First, the developer must be required to place a good neighbor disclosure or deed restriction on every single lot, plat, and HOA closing document, legally notifying incoming buyers that they are moving next to an active livestock property, and waive their right to file city nuisance complaints. Second, the financial burden of buffering this impact belongs to the developer. I request a mandatory condition requiring the developer to install a commercial-grade 6-foot privacy fence or an engineered landscape buffer on their side of the property line before any construction begins. Third, because of my current corral layout requires me to utilize a manure staging area near the fence line for daily barn maintenance and the introduction of small residential lots will create an immediate setback conflict. This is an active operational staging area where waste is collected and hauled off appropriately. Because North Ogden Code requires a 75-foot buffer between animal structures and adjacent dwellings, I request that the developer be required to design a non-buildable common area or extended property setback on their side of the line to mirror this buffer. I am voicing these concerns tonight, so they are part of the permanent record. If North Ogden City creates a conflict by changing the zone, the city must protect its historic property owners from frivolous code enforcement when the new residents move in. Thank you for your time.
I was wondering if you could put that picture back up of where the homes would be.
Would you state your name and address?
Yes, of course. My name is Jessica Howick Davis, and I own the property directly adjacent to the parcel under review at 42 North, 450 East. So basically lot 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are right next to my property line. Okay. And thank you for pulling that up. So my family and I have lived in this North Ogden and Pleasant View area for over 40 years. Growing up here, my family had horses, and we experienced this exact scenario firsthand when development began pressing in. I have seen the real world problems, the safety hazards, and the friction it causes when high-density residential lots are forced right against established livestock lines. Beyond being a longtime resident, I'm also a 6th grade teacher here in our community, and I teach my students that their voices matter and that they need to believe that they can make a difference. So standing at this microphone tonight is me practicing exactly what I preach. I couldn't look at my students in the eye next year if I didn't step up tonight to advocate for the safety of the neighborhood and protection of the local agricultural roots that we have. Okay, sorry, I'm really nervous. I'm here tonight to voice my strong opposition to rezoning it. Our immediate neighborhood is anchored by the historic scale and architectural breathing room of the residential city center zone. Shifting this specific parcel to an R-1-5 small lot residential zone represents a completely incompatible high-density island that disrupts the establishment fabric of our community. But my opposition isn't just about the neighborhood character, but it is a matter of immediate safety, liability, and the land use conflict. My active livestock fence runs directly along the property line of these, especially my horses are right where 4, 5, and 6 are. Like they lean on that fence. Okay. I run a legally permitted agriculture operation with horses, possible future cows, chickens, and dogs. Keeping livestock inherently involves dust, noise, and odors. The current zoning provides larger setback requirements that act as a vital buffer between my animals and neighboring homes. By packing tightly squeezed, high-density micro lots right against my fence line, you are actively creating a dangerous situation. When you put suburban backyards directly against a livestock fence, people who do not understand agriculture move in, and this creates an immediate danger to children, domestic pets, and my own animals. And again, I do speak from experience when this happened to me and my family in Pleasant View. Too often, suburban neighbors treat horse fences like a petting zoo. They think they can feed my horses whatever they want, which causes fatal colic. Or worse, kids throw rocks and debris over the fence to get the animals to move, which puts my horses and cows or other animals at risk of severe injury. Controversially, a curious child or a loose domestic dog getting too close to a spooked horse or cow creates massive physical safety hazard and severe liability trap. North Ogden City Code requires strict separation setbacks between dwellings and animal pens to minimize these exact impacts. Forcing a high-density zone into this boundary line completely ignores that intent. It forces a land use conflict where my established farm operations will face inevitable ongoing nuisance complaints from new residents who shouldn't have been built that close to an active fence line in the first place. And just also coming really from a personal experience with this that I've had, the complaints do come. And even with things like when I train my horses, it looks abusive and I know that are some of you that do know my family, the Howicks, and that we've had horses there for a very long time. And they constantly got calls when we were training our colts and training our horses that we're abusing them or it's caused more flies or dust or whatever. And it just gets to the point where they get pushed out, and I don't want to see that. So I strongly urge the Planning Commission to vote against recommending this map. Please protect the integrity of North Ogden's existing residential zones and protect our local agricultural spaces. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa DeFries, and I just want to, I support her. And I don't know how many of you were here when Country Boy Dairy was our dairy. It was an amazing part of North Ogden. And once they started building the homes behind Country Boy Dairy, the Hancocks had so many complaints about the smell of the cows. They had been there for years and years and years. And all the residents that were moving in complained about the smell of the cows and the odor and everything that went along with it. And what happened to Country Boy Dairy? They shut them down because of all the complaints of the residents. So I want to back her because that's part of what North Ogden is country. It's a little bit of country living. And I also strongly oppose this density housing and the commercial going in along the west side of Washington. Me and my husband, like he said, have lived in North Ogden for 40 years and we love North Ogden. But it's becoming a real concern of having commercial. I see this duplex that's just down by Kurt's on the west side of the street. That is an eyesore. It is a complete eyesore. Do you know that years ago, the barber that lived right next to there was moved out of his home and they tore down his home and he moved because they said they were going to build something there. That duplex is still there. There's graffiti on it. Kids have gone in and destroyed. You see things hanging down from the windows. why can't we do something there? Residential or commercial in that? Is there a reason why that's still sitting there? That duplex? Do you guys know what I'm talking about across?
Yep, we do.
Okay. Is there any, I mean, they were going to do something with that property probably 25 years ago.
That you probably want to talk to the property owner. I mean, it's not our decision to put something there.
Well,
I agree, it's an eyesore. I really
okay,
do.
but Mayor Taylor took those homes away from the residents 10 years ago. The Jensens, they raised their family there. Mayor Taylor went in and condemned those homes and moved them out and bought those homes. The city has owned those homes for 10 years and rented them out, making money off of those homes. And now they've been torn down. And my understanding was it was to widen the road. Or when Connie Jensen was bought out, it was because there was going to be a roundabout put there. That was 10 years ago. And the city has brought in rent money from those homes. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That is correct.
They were not condemned. All of
Well,
the
that-
owners sold their home voluntarily.
Not in my understanding. Connie Jensen was a teacher at Green Acres Elementary, and she came to schools.
And
in
you mentioned this is part of the reason we don't do the back and forth. I was in the living rooms during those negotiations. It was all voluntary. There weren't any condemnation that was used because the money we used actually didn't allow for condemnation unless the project was happening in the next 2 years. So.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go back and forth, but all I'm saying is they were, as far as my understanding, they were pretty much taken. And I've talked to several residents that lived there. So that's just my understanding. But I'm just backing her and I'm opposing any commercial property, anything along up above Lee's up that way. So thank you.
My name is Kent Bell. I'm a lifelong resident of North Ogden, and my home's going to be is on the south side of the this lot, right where the driveway is going to be. With 5 individual homes there, there's going to be at least 4 or 5 people in each home, with 2 or 3 cars pulling in and out of there, and a lot of lights on and off there. It's going to make it harder to pull out of our driveway, and it's going to totally ruin privacy that we have in our backyard. If you guys live next to it, you would not want that either. So I'm totally against this rezoning. And I think that like Trev and his wife Jess have said, that it would be a big impact on their animals and horses and everything there. And this part of North Ogden should not be a multi-house dwelling there. It's supposed to be for individual homes and not high density homes like that. Thank you.
My name is Deanne Burns, and I agree with Lisa DeFries in the eyesore and stating of Country Boy Dairy. And I also, as a citizen of North Ogden, I am using my First Amendment right, and I don't think we should be chastised for coming up and using that. You, as the Planning Commission, do not have to reply, and you don't have to be rude about it.
My name's David Parkinson. I live at 470 East, 2750 North, which is just around the corner. And 2700 North, sorry. And I agree with the Davis family. I have horse property right next to my property. I know what kind of smells. I know what kind of flies that fly around. I know what kind of dust they kick up. I grew up in the country and I'm all right with it. I took steps at my house to enclose my back deck because I didn't like the dust getting all over my furniture all the time, so I could go out and, you know, do things. And, but I know that if you put in those kind of lots, you'll get complaints. There will be no doubt in my mind you'll get complaints on those things. Kent Bell has a beautiful home right there. And it would be a travesty to put all these high density homes right next to his. That lot's situated perfectly for another beautiful home just like his. So it would complement the area, have a huge backyard, allow for, you know, the horse dust to come over in the yard and fertilize the ground and do whatever, but it wouldn't bother the home. And I think that's just, it isn't right to do those kinds of things. I know the property owner has rights and I know that they'll want to do what they want to do, but the Shaws owned that for many years and refused to develop it because they knew that the neighbors had horses. They knew that they used to have horses and stuff there. So I just think it's not the right thing to do for this property. And I think it'll also affect the traffic a lot in that area. When you get 5 homes with up to 3 cars each, 2 cars, there's a lot of people coming in and out of there all day long. Kids, as kids get older and start driving. And this area has a lot of kids walking around, kids coming down on skateboards to come to the park and stuff. It doesn't need any more high traffic, doesn't need people going up and down the street like they do. It would be just a much safer place if there was just a single home built there. I don't have a problem breaking the 2 lots up out front, but maybe they could subdivide off the back and sell it as one big lot and get a nice home there that would complement the area. Thank you.
Hello, Jim Flint, Hanson and Associates, 538 North Main, Brigham City. I think looking at this, the key word is infill. We've got agricultural existing, historical on both sides, but at the end of the day, this is just a 1.2 acre infill project that would be slated for orderly development within the city. And I can sympathize with some of the others. My bedroom is 40 feet from a dairy. I'm fortunate because it doesn't affect me at all. But I don't think that the long time agricultural activities should overpower the simplistic view that this is basically an infill development. Thank you.
My name is Douglas Varner. I live at 3671 Lakeview Drive. I have prepared comments. I'll keep it under 5 minutes. I will mention that several of my neighbors have read my comments and have approved of my comments to be given tonight. Good evening, commissioners. I am here tonight in strict opposition to the rezone of parcel 18-021-0006 from RCC to R15 and the discussed gas station and commercial zone at 3100 North and North 450 East. This intersection is a literal doorstep and gateway to our hillside neighborhood at the top of Lakeview. When my family and our neighbors invested our life savings in our homes here, we did so based on the city's promised zoning maps, We trusted that the residential city center designation would protect the single-family character of our neighborhood. The current unannounced construction on the lower end of 400 North 450 East with its associated detours has already severely alienated this section of our North Ogden community. Communication has broken down, leaving residents dependent on rumors for development plans and scheduled completion dates for street construction. Now these proposed actions threaten to compound that damage and sour public opinion permanently. This is no longer just a zoning debate. It is a question of representation and sound planning principles. First, let's look at the planning reality. A high-density R15 rezone paired with a major commercial gas station completely ignores neighborhood compatibility. The North Ogden General Plan explicitly tasked this commission with protecting established single-family neighborhoods. Downgrading this parcel to R15 and slapping the commercial zone next to it is the literal definition of incompatible spot zoning. It fails to provide any reasonable transition or buffer zone between intense commercial activity and quiet residential doorsteps. Second, consider the immediate infrastructure and safety strain. The intersection of 3100 North and 450 East is not built to safely handle the heavy fuel tankers, constant idling delivery vehicles, and high volume 24/7 cut-through traffic that a major convenience store requires. Furthermore, placing a high-traffic commercial business like a Maverick gas station, which sells vaping and tobacco products, directly in the path of our high school students going to and from school raises severe safety and health concerns that this commission cannot ignore. We are intentionally introducing a massive, attractive nuisance and severe pedestrian vehicle conflict points right where our children walk. The consequences of your choices tonight will be felt for generations. If this body chooses to prioritize commercial expansion and dense developer profits over safety, stability, and express will of citizens who live here, we will respond at the ballot box. We are not just a handful of disgruntled neighbors. We are organized, we are talking door to door, and we will actively campaign to replace every elected official who fails to represent the citizens' clear will. We will remember who voted to protect our children, our property values, and who voted to dismantle them. Please follow the directives of our general plan. Protect the safety of our student pathways, deny this rezone, and protect our neighborhood gateway. Thank you.
Are there any more comments? Any comments online? No hands raised. Invite the developer back up if you'd like to answer any of the concerns raised.
Chairman?
Yes.
Before we do that, we are talking only about the 1.1. We're not talking about the commercial at this point.
Yes, I'm not involved in the,
Right, this
Yeah.
public hearing
Yeah,
for the 1.1 acres only has nothing to do with the commercial.
the commercial,
Not even
correct.
under consideration
Correct.
at this moment.
So bear in mind, those comments moved back and forth, I think, a little bit, but certainly to be considered, but not particularly all of the comments for this specific item.
And it's related just to the rezone, not to the site plan that
Correct.
shows 5 new lots.
Correct.
So.
yeah, I have nothing to do with the commercial. And that's a whole separate item for me. I empathize with the people who have the horses. I've had horses for 45 years. I've had them with my neighbors. Yeah, there's problems that come up. One time they got out and went through the neighbor's garden and I had to fix it. But as a whole, I didn't really have a lot of problems. And I don't know what North Ogden zoning is. How many large animals can you have per acre? What does the zoning say? Does anyone know that? I don't know how many animals these people are running. Sounds like a whole ranch. So I think that's something that ought to be considered. And we don't, there's no problem with us putting up a privacy fence. I think it's a good idea. I like the other gentleman's comments. So, you know, no one likes development. They always want it to be somewhere else. And it's the same story in every city. When a developer comes in and wants to change the environment, no one wants it changed. The fellow who spoke from Lakeview, I was around when that was developed. That caused a big problem. But you know what? They allowed it to go and he's happy living up there in Lakeview. So it's the same story over and over again. And we don't want to be bad neighbors. We want to be good neighbors. We don't want to cause anyone any problems. And I like his idea of the 6-foot privacy fence. I think that's a great idea to do it. So I would appreciate your consideration, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right.
I mean, I can answer that question. So on properties in the R18 AG zone, so this is the properties immediately around it are zoned R18. So it's just standard 8,000 square foot zoning. So these animal keeping rights would be considered legal non-conforming uses that wouldn't go away or change until that property owner sold the property, changed the use. If they were to abate the use for at least 1 year, you know, the city could potentially enforce no animals coming back. But the current zoning requires at least 1 acre and up to 5 acres in size. Animals and fowl are limited to 4 horses, cows, sheep, or goats, or combination thereof per acre. So you would need to have, today, if you were going to get animal keeping rights in the R18 AG zone, you would have to have at least 1 acre property in order to get any large animals on there.
Thank you.
Scott, I have a question.
Should we close the public hearing
Yeah.
first? Okay. Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Great. Let's go ahead and close that. Go ahead and with your question.
Scott, when we talk about high density and as it relates to R15, what is the current definition of high density?
So the general plan's current definition of high density is 18 units per acre up to 40 units per acre. And to give a little context, the highest density that the city has currently would be the apartment portion of Village at Prominence Point that are being constructed now north of 1700 North is right about 17 units per acre if you extract just the apartment component out of it. Rural residential is lots that are half acre or larger. Low density residential is 8,000 square feet or larger, which is what the R18A or R18 zone is. Medium density residential is 4,000 to 8,000 square feet, as well as attached housing types and densities in the range of 6 to 18 units per acre. This particular downtown area, it's in the downtown mixed use area of the general plan, and within walking distance north and south of this particular property, you have a 10-plex apartment and 10 duplexes to the south, and then 10 duplexes just 1 block north and to the east. So it's a difficult area of the city to pin down what exactly is the right use.
So an R15 is a medium density. It is
Be a
not a
me-
high density.
It would be medium density by our definitions in our general plan.
All right.
Scott, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What can be built in residential city center, which is zoned right now? What
So-
could be built there now?
So right now you could do 8,000 square foot lots with a 9,000 square foot on the corner. Given the property size and the configuration of a private street, today they could build depending on the configuration, between 3 and 4 of those lots as it currently is, depending on the fire turnaround required on the west side.
And you're saying that with maintaining the 2 homes that are there on the Washington side.
Yep, so
they
that would
could-
be just the portion, the rear yard portion of the property could be potential, and I haven't, I don't design it, I don't draw it, I just did some basic math on lot widths and lot sizes. You could get at least 3 and potentially 4 under current zoning today, so wouldn't require the rezone.
Scott, oh, sorry, did I jump in front of somebody? Sorry. The side of my eyes aren't working real well.
Didn't jump over me.
A couple of blocks south of this, at the corner of 450 and 2700 North on the southwest corner. You'll remember back when I was on council that there was a long discussion about, I believe we approved duplexes on that. We did not.
It's R1, it's actually R4, so
It's
thick-
R4 that we
thick
approved.
spot. Yep.
Okay, I couldn't remember the zone that we approved there, but I do remember the discussion. There being lots of discussion amongst planning commission and council at the time about, while this R5 isn't high density, it's technically medium density, but we did have conversation and concern about the creep of higher density slowly block by block going further and further north. That's the only concern I have. When I first looked at this, I was trying to figure out how in the world they were going to get out onto 400, out onto Washington. Then I looked a little deeper and saw that they were going to get out onto 450 East. So I think there's a lot to consider here. Okay, that was what I wanted to know, though, was what we had zoned that one corner. Thank you.
All right. Well, if there are no more questions for Scott, we'll open it up to discussion amongst ourselves here.
Well, maybe I have a question. Maybe it's just leading into the discussion. The assertion of the agricultural private property rights that we heard, are there means and methods we can do to address any of those? I mean, he's got horses. It seems pretty common sense to someone buying a home that it's going to smell like manure here and there. July is going to be really ripe. Do we have the means to address anything like that? Or is that more of I guess I'm more just concerned if there are complaints, how does the city address that? Does it get addressed? Does everything have to be investigated and talked about? Or is it there's horses there?
It's basically they're moving to the nuisance. And I'm not a land use lawyer, but when that happens, the prevailing uses rights exist. So the animal keeping rights wouldn't be impacted other than maybe, noisy neighbors that move into those homes, but they moved into the nuisance essentially. And right now, the residential city center zoning, you could have a single family home with the rear yard being 20 feet from the property line. So it's not, I guess the change from the current zoning to the R15, one permits the splitting of those homes out on Washington Boulevard into their own individual lots. So it doesn't have a non-conformity of lot width because lot widths are 55 feet. But right now they could develop R18, a small infill subdivision with functionally similar setbacks, and it's legal in the code, the permitted use of the property today. So there's not really, I guess the answer is no. Like we can't require this property owner to separate their structures based on their zoning further away from an existing use just because of potential nuisance claims.
And just as an example, the current proposals, 2 existing, 5 new. If everything was to be raised and just go R18, do you have an idea of what that number is? Is it in the 6 or 7 range as well?
Hold on one second.
Probably not.
We'll use the only number that matters in planning, just 43,560 square feet per acre. times 1.22. So you have 53,143. If you divide that by 8,000 square foot lots, it's 6.6. So that's the number I got, where you have the two and then potentially, three plus potentially one more. Is what, if they were to take everything down and do one infill private drive development, approximately what they'd be able to get.
Scott, could we provide an additional buffer to that agricultural use by possibly, when they propose the subdivision, maybe flip the street and put it on the north side?
Yeah, and that was originally staff's recommendation, just based on the lining up the road to 2700 North. I think if you look historically at the property ownerships there as it gets out to Washington Boulevard, 2700 was likely supposed to connect, but it creates an offset intersection.
It does.
Between Loman View and 2700 that's already a dangerous left-hand turn.
But I'm talking
You're
just
just
a
talking a
private
buffer?
street, maybe.
So that's
It gives an additional buffer
Yep.
to the homes.
You could do that. And the great thing about a rezoning process or any legislative process is that stipulations could be put on the property. So right now it's a rezone request, not with a development agreement. It's just to a, standard R15. And then we develop it under legal standards. So unless the rezone were to come in with the requirement that the street be on the north side, it would be however can you, how can you make this property culinary water, sewer, stormwater, do all of the legal requirements for the subdivision process. But that's something the planning commission, should you make a recommendation, could recommend to city council as part of the legislative decision.
But otherwise, a home could be built 20 feet from the property line and meet the current
zone
requirement. Yes, John?
I think it's important to note that when you're talking non-conforming uses, nuisances, there's a whole lot of like factual things that come into play there. And so it's hard to say in any given situation without thoroughly exploring everything, whether and what rights would prevail. I do think, for example, that the longevity of the use has some impact, but it's not always protected, which is why courts fight over nuisances all the time. It's not something the city would be involved in typically. It's typically something between two neighboring property owners.
I think R18 fits better in this spot. There's no R15 surrounding it. And I think R18 would fit better, which is very similar to what's already there. And, there's R14 across Washington, but there's no R1, that puts it closer to R15, but there's no R15 on this side. And if you look at the road, which is going into the neighborhood towards the school, the rest of them are all roughly R18.
It's my understanding too, that this is a request to change it to R15. So we don't necessarily need to provide suggestions. We can simply deny the request if that's the way the council moves. I'm just saying there's not a lot of reason to say, well, what if you did it this way or what if you did it that way?
Well, we're recommending to the council, right?
Correct.
I was gonna say we're not approving or denying. It's a
Yes,
recommend.
thank you. That's what I meant to say. But you know what I mean? Like we can say,
Well, and the basis of my question to Scott on the R18 zoning is we're getting 6.6 homes on the R18, rezone or not. And so that's where I'm at, where the effect of the rezone allows some older home character to be preserved. And with a denial of a rezone, those homes are going down and we're getting 6.6 homes on the same property. The actual number of residents is not something that our decision is likely going to affect. Does that make sense? Just the existing zoning at R18 fitting, it does fit the zone, but it also does, I spoke about ramifications earlier. The ramifications are, we know one of the two homes is likely going to be raised on Washington. The developer is seeing some value in retaining one of the older homes. With a denial, we in essence could be putting into effect a removal of that second home so that the same, proposed density ends up occurring anyway.
Well, I would entertain a motion. I would also entertain further discussion. My opinion here, it's really hard for me to say, to pass this at R15 with the given plan that we have here with the road. It seems clunky to me, but that's my opinion.
And
right?
in my opinion, just based on projects I've worked on with turnarounds and driveways, dealing with a fire marshal, I don't know how far their conversations have gone, but I'm not overly hopeful on the drawing that I've seen, but that is not the exhibit in which necessarily we make the decision on.
Right.
And they still have to get approval from the fire marshal.
Exactly. So again, just to second what I said, I don't think the number of units on the property is going to be a direct change no matter what. It might cost a developer more money to do so. But at R18, the project is likely more feasible and they don't have to do the fire turnaround. It can be a through street.
Well, it's currently an RCC. It's not an R18.
Correct, but we don't have I don't think we have the
Yeah.
precedent to not go to R18 based on the neighboring zoning being so.
The two are functionally the same. So the zoning standards between R18 and RCC are essentially the same. RCC allows for some actually nuanced other interesting things. You can do attached dwelling units, planned unit development. So looking at the code, it's potential they could do twin homes, but there's some specifics you have to meet in the attached dwelling units. But the RCC is a very open zone. But as far as lot widths, overall lot sizes, setbacks, it's functionally R18.
And I understand what Commissioner Bailey's saying. The residents may not get what they want, and that's not something that we have control because it is already zoned that way. But we're deciding tonight if we're recommending R15, and I would put forward
My reasons that I gave are directly related to that.
Okay.
I mean, let's not dismiss those reasons. We're talking about an R15 versus an R18, and it's systematically ending up the same. But if we look at unintended consequences, leaving it R18 and the landowner raises everything might be worse for everybody. It's just a consideration.
Thank you for.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I like that perspective. I didn't have that perspective necessarily before. But if we're playing the long game here and we deny the change to R15, we will see another, we'll see this again. Is that correct?
Possibly, they could do
Right.
something under the RCC.
RCC.
Because they could effectively do the R18.
Right.
Right, 8,000. And as Scott mentioned a minute ago, the RCC zone is a little bit broader in what you can build than just the straight R18. So it gives them effectively an R18 just to leave it as it is, with broader opportunity for twin homes and those kinds of things. Where going to the R5, it may preserve one of those homes out front. It might not, but it sounds like one of them is definitely going.
Scott, if they end up coming back with keeping it the existing zoning, that ends up being a minor subdivision and we never see it.
It depends on if there's any roadway dedications.
Okay.
Planning Commission accepts roadway dedication. It's likely the right-of-way width out there in front of North Ogden Park in the skate park. I think that's the full right-of-way width. So they'd need to build sidewalk, curb and gutter. So you may not see it. It might just come back as a private subdivision, which is under 10 lots and
Right.
under 10 lots and no roadway dedication or public dedication like storm detention basins. We typically bring back small lot subdivisions that are on private streets, that the private street is narrower than a public street standard to the Planning Commission because it requires by code a specific recommendation or permission from the city engineer to do that. So we're usually fairly cautious on those items, but those are administrative. They're not legislative. They're not public hearings, and public comments are encouraged, but it's a different process than what the rezone looks like.
So, you know, I'm thinking both ways and I'm leaning toward an approval because I'm imagining the creativity we create in a denial to go back and look at the RCC zone and what can be done on the property. I know it's not what everyone came in, you know, neighbors and stuff came in wanting, you know, with more homes, but it's likely going to be the same outcome. But I'm also sitting here going, we have an applicant asking for an R15 and in the RCC, it could be something with some more creativity that could affect them in a more negative manner. And I'm seeing the limited sketch we have, and I'm a little bit leaning on a fire marshal and experience there. So it might sound counterintuitive, but that's why I would lean for the rezone, lock it in, those 5 lots. You know, I know there's the potential that they come back in for a change of zone on the front parcel, and we would be dealing with that later. But again, if you think of what more heads together and creativity in a straight through street with 6 homes, it's in essence the same outcome.
It would rezone the front lots though too, correct? It's not
It's
just,
all one lot, correct?
Yeah, this would rezone everything.
Both lots.
And yep,
Okay.
if they were to subdivide and zone, if they wanted to keep both homes out front and put them on their own individual lot, they need a different zone than RCC. There's only 141 feet of frontage. There's not enough width to get both of them there.
Right.
The R15 at 55-foot frontages would permit them to separate those onto their own individual lots. That's kind of its own issue of the home viability on Washington Boulevard. But at the size of lot that they have, 1.22 acres, you know, multiplied by the gross density permitted, they could take everything down and just as Commissioner Bailey's saying, have an administrative process to just create a subdivision in there that Planning Commission may not see. But to subdivide the front lots, it would require a rezone or some other type of permission, basically. They can't do it in the RCC zone.
And R15 is the only way to make those 2 lots on 450
Yeah,
or
they-
on
Individual lot.
on individual lots, yeah.
yeah.
Well, you know, I think everyone's going to have their opinion, and I think everyone's opinion is based on the same protections of the property rights of the owner and the neighbor's rights. I don't know if there's a huge difference in either decision. So if we wanted to keep going, we could, or we could put it up to vote.
Is that a motion?
I don't know. I don't know what the motion would be at this moment in time, but again, I'm with what's going on around, I don't know if we're going to come to an agreement without just going for it. So let's see, it's open somewhere. So I would make a motion to approve the zoning map amendment for 2742 North, 400 East to rezone the property from residential center, which is effectively R18, to small lot residential R15 as an infill project, with an added point on that approval that this potentially allows some preservation of the home along Washington Boulevard.
And that's a recommendation.
That's
to
a
the
recommendation to approve,
City council.
to city council to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Right. Commissioner, excuse me, Commissioner Bailey mentioned, motion to approve the zoning amendment, and Commissioner Gardner seconded the motion. Let's go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Settlemyre,
No.
Commissioner Swanson,
No.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
No.
Okay, and I vote no on that as well. So that doesn't pass. We move, I guess just to,
So you're sending an unfavorable recommendation to the
Correct.
council. Yeah.
thank you. I'm having trouble with
I think
words
it's
today.
important that everyone understands that while our recommendation as a planning commission, the vote is no, recommending not to do it, city council has full purview to do whatever it is they think is right. So it happened when I was on council. It still happens today. The council may look at things differently than we do, and they decide on their own that, yes, they're going to approve this. So you have a recommendation from planning commission, and then city council will make that final determination.
Thank you, Commissioner Swanson. All right, with that taken care of, let's move to item number 7, zoning map amendment 2026-05-3425 North Mountain Road. Rezone property from mixed zones, including R110, R1 12.5, and HP3 residential, which is the majority of the piece, to HP2 hillside protection. This is a public hearing. What did I say? Oh, to HP2, to HP2 hillside protection. No problem. This is a public hearing and work session. We will be hearing from Scott Hess, but at the request of the applicant, no mailers were sent out, so we will hear this again at a different public hearing. Presenter Scott Hess, correct me if I'm wrong there.
Nope, that's correct. So
Okay.
we have spoken, staff has spoken with the applicant several times about the concept plan, about the geotechnical work that would need to be done. And at the applicant's request, they wanted a work session with the planning commission. But in order to meet the state's 10-day public notice period timeframe, we had already posted the public hearing notice as part of the application, the paid for application. But because no mailers were sent to property owners within 300 feet of this area, there's no decision or recommendation that can be rendered by the planning commission tonight. So we'll look at this as a work session and we'll talk through some of the nuances. So this property on the southern side touches 1050 East and Mountain Road. And then on the north end, it touches Michelle Lane that comes out of the southern end of the cove. So it's a significant sized piece of property from north to south. On the south end near 1050, there's a sliver of property that is zoned 10,000 square foot lot, effectively quarter acre zoning, R110. There's another little sliver above it that's R12.5, which is not quite a third of an acre lot. And then the rest of it is Hillside Protection 3, which requires 2 acres per lot. This is an area of the city that was identified in our 1997, I think 1997, the Hillside Protection Zone area. And if you think of North Ogden kind of like the crook of an elbow, that property or that mountainside that faces west, I learned from a previous city engineer, is a historic alluvial fan. So it's essentially a giant landslide that happened however many, orders of magnitude years ago. And you can see it when you're driving in from I-15 down 2700 North. You can, once you realize what that geologic, structure is, you can visually see that hillside landslide. And because of that, that whole area of the city was downzoned to 2-acre lots as in a way to protect the public interest, protect those structures, protect the city, limit liability, not put so many houses up on the hill that would be at risk. And in some of those areas, we estimate that you may be able to find the fault line, but it could be 100 feet deep. We don't really know where the fault line falls under this massive hillside. So staff's concern with the development proposal as it was proposed, or the rezone as it was proposed, is we just simply don't have enough information to make an informed decision on whether or not this property in particular is more similar to the Cove, which is Hillside HP2, Hillside Protection 2. And while the Cove was developed with really large lots, its underlying zoning is a third of an acre lot. So if you look at Jordan Park, the new subdivision that continues Mountain Road, that's more similar to this development than what the Cove would be. And if you look at the two subdivisions that happened immediately north of this one, which is Wasatch Hills and Hidden Hills, those have both been developed under Hillside Protection 3 with at least 2-acre kind of estate lots, essentially. So you're sandwiched between some really interesting development here, but staff, at least the planning staff, hasn't seen enough geotechnical work to know whether or not this is good, bad, or indifferent. And then we're also concerned about, road steepness and other things. So for that reason, we don't have a recommendation. It's just hold the public hearing. We have the applicant representative here to represent the project, and then we're happy to answer questions. And way in the back, we have our city engineer, Tim, here as well, if we have any questions for engineering. With that, I'll take any questions.
Can we require all of that to answer the concerns of staff and planning?
It is required. So the hillside, the HP zones generally, and we drew a line, the study here in 1997 essentially drew a line of this point north, said this area is more geologically sensitive than the areas south. And so it provides a wide variety of geologic studies that we can require as staff to best understand what's going on the property to create safety for everybody.
So because staff doesn't have a recommendation and we don't have enough information to really make a wise recommendation, we can request additional so that we can make a better decision.
And we have, and since we had posted the public notice, the application has been applied for. We have an applicant who's supplied information. Tonight is really a discussion between the applicant and yourselves and thinking about what are the risks to be mitigated, what information would you like to see? We know on that side, the geologic studies that we'll look at, wildlife studies, the wildland urban interface. So there are some things that as the planning commission, you could or should consider, which are things like maximizing zoning density, or there are often trade-offs between the impacts of increased zoning and what we might be like losing, I want to say, or trail connectivity or open space or other things. So there's bits of the conversation the planning commission should and could have, but I would say that you're really waiting until you have a more clear geologic picture before staff would recommend that planning commission make a recommendation to the city council.
Okay.
And the current zoning is the hillside protected too?
HP3.
HP3, okay. And then there's a sliver that's kind of zoned odd at the southern portion.
Yep. It's hard to, John might be able to pull it up, but
yeah, there was just like
you could build a handful of lots on that southern side with Mountain Road coming down through.
Cool.
But you wouldn't be able to do a whole lot going north up through the Knudsen property.
Okay. Scott, does this property have water rights for secondary water?
That's a good question. So we have applicant representative, but we don't have we don't have a subdivision application. So this is a rezone, which would precede any of those will serve letters and other items as part of a subdivision.
Do we have a time scheduled for this work session?
We don't have a time limit, I guess, and we can set one.
No,
if
I
you want
meant
to.
with the city council.
I mean, I'd be
No,
cool with
that's
that too.
tonight. I mean, tonight is effectively a work session. So there's two ways the planning commission could go. One is you could postpone this item to a future date meeting, but staff felt you have enough information to have a discussion with the applicant representative. You know, they've waited almost 2 hours, so I feel like it's worthwhile to have that conversation with them, but it won't be a work session between city council and planning commission. It's just that you cannot make a recommendation based on public hearing notice requirements. So tonight is a discussion.
And just one more question. You know, it wasn't presented. It's not rude for us to say, you know, there's no back and forth, right? On the previous topic, it was seen as we were being rude, but that's sort of the general rule of no back and forth.
Yeah.
Does it seem appropriate that this might be a back and forth?
Well, when you have an applicant and the planning commission, it is a back and
Okay.
forth conversation. I guess the traditional like Robert's rules would say that during a public comment period, they are making public comment, but it isn't a dialogue between the.
I mean, I'm playing a little
body.
dumb. It wasn't rude before, and I wanted to put that on the record and then lead in that there's going to be a back and forth and for the reasons that you stated.
So there isn't a 5-minute limit to our discussion.
Whatever you want.
That depends on.
Well, I want pizza, Scott.
Hold up.
Okay.
Eat dinner.
I have a question
Yes.
for the applicant, if you want to come to the mic.
Can we get your name?
Should we open, wait a minute, should we open public hearing
This
if we're gonna have
is
the
a public
applicant or it's not?
It is?
It has to be
Yeah.
a public hearing because
Okay.
we posted it as one.
Yeah.
It just can't be
My bad.
the decision because we didn't, it's like a
We can't-
50% of
We
the.
are holding the public hearing. We're not making the
And we're making
recommendation.
Okay.
Right. And we will hold another one.
Okay, so let's officially open the public hearing
Yes.
and invite the applicant up.
Thanks, Scott. My name's Hunter Murray. I represent the Holland Group, and we're from Kaysville. Yeah, so I think that, sorry if we rocked the boat in any way with our process and everything, but we've had a couple internal meetings with the planning department as well as engineering. And the thought and the reasoning behind having more of this open discussion versus maybe just simply presenting it and going straight to a vote was exactly what Scott had mentioned. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about tonight. And that's that with this being on the hillside, there's going to be geological questions and multiple different details that we are ironing out as we go. And so the thought behind this meeting was really to say, assuming that those geological questions are resolved and they pass and they look good, can we have an open conversation about the rezone, the site plan, the density, things of that sort? When the Knutsons showed me this land years ago, immediately fell in love with this piece. I mean, I think that the area, the views, everything about the surrounding subdivisions, this is a really, really special piece that I think we're, as developers, holding really close to us, and we're here to make it right. We want to make this project right, and we really value your input and your comments in this discussion to accomplish that. So that was the purpose, was to converse and hear from one another about what we're trying to accomplish on this piece.
What kind of geological studies are you working on to answer your questions?
So right now we've done, our standard phase ones and hired CMT to do our geological engineering. The additional things that we are working through, to Scott's point, are the fault line as well as the alluvial fan. From a quick analysis that CMT, our geotech engineers, did, This land is outside of both the state mapped areas of concern with the fault line. It's also out of the areas of concern with the state approved maps for the alluvial fan. Now, we understand that just because it's outside of that area doesn't mean that we don't need to still do some additional testing to make sure. I think we can acknowledge that sometimes those maps can be a little generic and maybe not very precise. And so our goal when it comes to the engineering details is to make sure that we can have that CMT provides a clear answer for that fault line and that alluvial fan. And more importantly, working closely with Tim and Scott and everyone involved at the city to make sure that they've seen eyes on it and they concur with what our engineers have found.
And with CMT and is it just like pit testing?
That's what we're doing right now. Yes.
And just an estimate on the north-south portion, that length, how many test pits have you done? How many are you planning?
So I believe we're north of, I want to say we're north of 12. I think we're probably closer to 18 or 20.
Okay.
I don't have the exact number. We had that discussion with CMT and I believe we're again, north of 12, but probably in that 18 to 20 range throughout this project.
In this process through the discussion, I'm not an engineer by any stretch. I had a dream once that I was, and it was the worst nightmare of my life. But so for me, I'm going to have to rely on the technical abilities and knowledge of engineers who do this for a living. There was a reason back in 1997 that this area was designated as HP3.
Yeah.
Because of the alluvial fan, because of the fault line remnants that run off through this area. I mean, a little bit further east of this is a very large landslide that came down roughly 12,000 years ago. So for me, I'm going to have to see some good information that says this is safe to change it from an HP3. It got made HP3 for a reason.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to have to rely on Tim, on Lauren with your engineering background, with your design knowledge. Right now, I would say can't do it because I haven't seen anything that says this is what the engineers said previously. This is why we designated it this way. And this is why we're now saying it's safe.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think Commissioner Swanson, we're in the same boat as you. I don't claim to be an engineer, and so we heavily rely on those third-party companies to provide us with that information. I think, sometimes when 30 years ago, when you're mapping out areas of concern, did this piece draw the short end of the stick, so to speak, and the line just went one way when it could have gone another? Maybe. Or maybe this land has some really big concerns that we're going to discover as we finish up our geological testing. And so I think from the initial feedback from our engineers is that it's looking really positive. With that being said, we absolutely acknowledge that the process to make sure everyone feels good is to make sure that our engineering team has signed off on it, and concurrently, or excuse me, at the same time, North Ogden City has also signed off on it. So we want to make sure that we're essentially comparing notes and both parties feel good before we can really make any big statements, I guess, on that.
And Commissioner Swanson, I think too, just with your experience, I do think there is some general dialogue, taking away the information that is not there, just zooming back out. We didn't hear about alluvial fans, to voice an opinion just purely based on just the rezone. I think considering even if it's or even if it's HP3, the same studies occur, the same mitigated risks occur. So I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't just have to be, people that have an opinion or knowledge of, alluvial fans and stuff like that. But I do think you have a valuable opinion as a resident of North Ogden and what you think just the rezone in general.
I appreciate that. And I was going to say that the overall layout, the overall plan, I used to live just right on 3,300, just below where this is going to be. I've spent a lot of time in these hills, as you have, Lauren, and I think probably everybody up here, so I know this area very well. I generally like the proposal. I love the larger lots to the east. If it came back that from a geologic standpoint, that we were okay, I would give serious consideration to this. I think it would be a beautiful neighborhood. It's a great piece of land. But that's my only holdup at this point is finding that being presented with evidence that says this is why you can believe what we're saying versus what the engineers in 1997 said.
Well, and I think labeling it as an area of concern when they do this testing, it becomes a long report and it actually has recommendations for like structural engineers.
Sure.
Pounds per square foot bearing capacity, some areas with piers or whatnot. So, I don't know how much of an impediment it is in the overall feasibility of the project, what it's likely. Well, I think you can build homes here in any way that is recommended by the geological engineer, the geotechnical engineer on this. So I don't know how, there's a chance that it's just not affordable to mitigate those risks.
Right. Yeah.
One thing that I want to bring up, we've been talking a lot of general plan stuff in previous meetings, and one of the concerns was that in the last time the general plan was put together is building up the mountainside. People were against it in 2015. So we are putting, if this geological study comes back and says it's good, one thing we have to consider is we are now building it's more dense than what is in the previous general plan layout.
Yeah.
It's going from 50, if it was HP3, it's 15 homes to 71, I think is what I saw in the staff report. So it is quite a bit denser. They're still very big lots, but we have to make sure we take that into consideration, what people were seeing on the general plan from 2015 to now. And then they're like, then all of a sudden we rezone this to HP2 if it passes geological surveys. So just something we need to think about as this moves forward.
And to that point, a question for the applicant is, does this pencil at all as HP3 with estate lots, things like that?
It would not be our intent to do it. Yes, there's that component. I think I guess the answer is no, that would not be our intent to do that.
And not that this matters, but it was somewhat interesting is pole patch up there, North Pleasant View. It was developed as those large 5-acre lots, but every single lot of there is more or less in an alluvial fan, and every single lot goes and does this study, and it's on the homeowner or the landowner, I guess. They have to go do these same studies and go through the same process, like individually. It's just an interesting thing. It in my opinion, it's an encumbrance on the landowner. It just becomes a roadblock, and nothing is really ever recommended that's all that crazy to do. Most of it is like on-site excavation. You keep, I had a home up there that they didn't want a basement. Well, they got a 12-footer, they had to keep digging and digging and digging and get, so I think there is a benefit to future residents or residents that would live here, is that there would be a blanket geotechnical report for the development with guidelines on how to do that. Again, just, we're hearing a lot about these reports, and it's kind of made development up there in Pole Patch a little sporadic, and they've had to really, to not encumber the private property rights of the landowners, Pleasant View City has had to make some pretty big concessions to their own zoning to allow people to build in certain areas of their own property based on these reports.
And just so my comments, not to like say that it wouldn't get like that we would or I would recommend
no.
either way. It's just more if to be prepared that residents may come and voice opinion. and
Yeah,
have some
and-
kind of comment towards it.
And I absolutely see that from the current zoning of essentially 15 lots to what we're working on right now is an increase. Our original thought or assumption with the HP3 was that it was designed to protect the property so that if the geotechnical
Right.
passes, there's a further conversation to maybe hold a little bit. And so I think we're trying to find that fine line of let's make sure the geotech looks good. And then assuming it does, how do we work with the city to go provide a really nice, clean, special subdivision that I think everyone is happy and can take pride in. And so, no, I appreciate the comment. Absolutely.
One other thing that I'm a big nature guy. You can see them on your map right here,
Trail.
all the trails that go through it, at least having a way to maintain that trail connectivity after the fact.
Yes.
Whether
I think that would be,
That would,
that would work really well in your favor if
the public
Yeah.
would like to
Yeah.
enjoy that a lot.
I think you're absolutely right. I didn't see any green space here, unless you count the detention pond. And I didn't see any allocation for the trail system that's there. I get it. It's on private property, but it's something that we could say,
they're asking for a rezone.
Yeah.
And we're having a work session, and
Yeah.
no green space is it's a thing there, but if you retain access
yeah,
to green space,
And-
you're giving up
Sure.
less land, but you're also setting a precedent for maybe the next person that comes
Yeah.
in above them or east.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of trail connectivity. Yeah, a green space could be a nice place for people to start their recreation from, like maybe a little park with a parking lot that is open to the public to then access those trails.
Yeah, in some ways I was hesitant. We've made a lot of internal decisions and assumptions as we kind of play around and configure and different things like that. And in some ways I'm almost hesitant to show this because I just want to let everyone know that the trail connectivity for us is equally a priority. It's not reflected on this. And that's one reason why I was like, oh, but at the same time, I want to just reflect that we do anticipate to make sure that trail connectivity is not just in there, but a big focus of our project.
One other concern that the city has is preservation of some of the vegetation out there. And the way I see these lots laid out, a lot of that's going to be gone. So maybe consideration of maybe some clustering so you can preserve some of that vegetation. Another comment regarding the geological issues. There's been a lot of better understanding since the general plan was originally the HP 3 designation was put in here. Once those studies are done, our state geologist, the state engineer can have some input on those because they have dealt with a lot of the issues on various communities across the Wasatch Front. So getting him involved to maybe do some extra review on those may give us a better understanding of what those results are happening there. So
We definitely want to compare notes. We want to be able to provide our findings from who we've hired and deliver them to the city and let, we want the city to feel comfortable as well.
Yeah.
That,
I mean, I think you and the city would be in the same boat in the sense as no one wants to be on KSL with houses sliding down the mountain.
let's avoid that. And we're both.
That it's kind of, so I think that's going to be a big factor, but
Definitely.
I would say that with what we've been seeing lately, even I don't think the diagram hurts you at all. I actually would argue that the previous applicant, the diagram really hurt them. That being said, this is a good size, this is a good size lot.
Thank you.
Size to me. This is right in the happy medium. It is going to be, maybe in the upper tier of middle class affordability, but we haven't seen a ton of that in recent years. So I think that's something you got going for you. But I do think the trail thing, I think can be sold as much of an amenity for
We agree.
your own
We
own customers, where we would call them the new landowners.
Yeah.
So this is to Scott and the general plan. Was your comment about the cove going to larger lots sort of a hint that if this was zoned more, that it still follows the general plan because there was less density over there?
Yeah, the hillside residential area is lots 10,000 square feet and up. So it's assumed HP1 is essentially the R110 zone with additional geologic requirements. The cove is just, it's just its own thing. It was developed in the early 2000s and it was developed as larger lots on these private COLDA lanes, and it's not reflective of what has to go up there. It's just what is west of it. But it's in the HP2 zone.
Okay.
Scott,
I'm talkative today.
if you look at this diagram here, right there where 1050 is coming up and it curves in, you have lot 1 there to the right. I think it's lot 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, lot 1 there to the right. Immediately across 1050 from that is where North Ogden City has a well pre-drilled.
yeah.
So my question is, you're aware of that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Is lot 1, lot 5, lot 6, and all of the
Those are in the
infrastructure are they look like they're going to be within the radius that you can't have sewer, you can't have water, kind of like we had over at the water
No, you
experience.
can, there's certain requirements
Okay,
to be able to build in those.
okay. I just was thinking of the Waterworks Experience Park,
Yeah.
that we couldn't put a bathroom in and we couldn't do some other things because it was within, what's the distance, John?
So
Feet of the
Waterworks,
well?
there's several zones, 1, 2,
Yes.
3.
Uh-huh.
And at the Waterworks Parks, it's in zone 1.
Okay.
So there's no pipe, even if it's fused.
Nothing.
But we've actually already ran the sewer in this area.
Okay.
And it is a
So it
fused
would be-
pipe
it
for a
would be clear.
portion because it's in zone 2.
Yeah.
There should be in the public works standards, the wellhead protection zone
Right.
maps that
I just wasn't sure.
can be looked at, and
Yeah.
they have to meet those requirements.
And just looking at the diagram, I think lot 1 would make a great pocket park. Hint, hint.
I like the pocket parks, but I mean, this is kind of a work session. This has nothing to do with the applicant, but I would really like to conglomerate a good chunk of land, more soccer fields, not another, plastic playground that burns your kid's butt in July.
Well,
Like that.
Nice playgrounds.
Yeah.
It's hard when you're getting up in the hilly
Yeah.
areas to make a flat soccer, field.
Would these, I don't know, this is way early in the process. Are these going to be public roads or is this going to be a private neighborhood?
We anticipate these to be public.
Okay.
Yeah, which again, for maybe a trail connectivity or things of that sort, public parking on the road, things like that, we plan to, they're public, so they'll be implemented that way. Yeah.
Thank you.
And as a point of note, I think this is the second time we've seen an idea in a work session for this piece of property. The last one was a little bit different. I don't know if you brought it to us. Um,
No.
But it's almost exactly the same amount of homes. Kind of, like, I think we had the same concerns back then, which was green space and trails. So just as a point of reference, I don't know if that even matters, because
It just seems like they're a little closer this time to be able to
yeah,
present with all of, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how many pits is normal, but when he answered like 12 to 14, I was going, that's pretty good. You know, I was thinking they were going to try to do 3 or 5 and find a fault line and run with it.
yeah,
So it seems like they're just a little closer this time. And so part of my comments are like, this is what you could do to sell everyone on it.
yeah.
And generally, when you build a pit or construct that, you're not looking for the fault line. The fault lines are generally located by trenching across, and you find the fault line in that. The pits give you soil characteristics and things like that. But if you're looking for a fault line, you're going to be trenching across, trying to find it where it crosses. And on alluvial fans, they're buried so deep that trench has to be hundreds of feet deep sometimes. And that's almost impossible to do.
Yes. And so I think for us, like the off the bat response from our geotech engineers was that they've analyzed the state approved mapping and we're outside of those concerns. With that being said, we don't, if that is not acceptable to West Point, simply just showing those maps and showing that we're out of that area, I think we're as a team happy to put our heads together and say, are there additional studies? Are there 1 or 2 extra things that North Ogden Engineering and the planning department would like to see in order for them to get comfortable? And so I think we're kind of at that phase right now where we're getting feedback and we're getting our reports back from our team. We're going to start sharing that and comparing notes with the city. And we're hopeful that what we provide on the first round is adequate. If for whatever reason it's not, then we're happy to follow that direction to go and prove or find out, I should say, that it is or it's not.
I'm just thinking, I'm a little bit of a blabbermouth. This is my last comment, I think, but
Promise. Just kidding.
sometimes I'm quiet. Sometimes I'm, just recent years, or was it last year we had the fire up there?
Yep.
So I like the idea of retaining vegetation, but I also like the idea of not costing the city, millions to go up there and create a huge buffer. But I would be, again, it's just selling points, but I think it might be interesting, to talk to a landscape specialist or an arborist or things, that could be, maybe like a list of existing plans that you would recommend residents to, if there's going to be the clear cutting, but, a list, say, hey, when we're selling these lots, we're giving some extra information on, what plans you can go buy that are native to what was there before. So maybe it's a different patch, but maybe, it's something people can put in their yards and whatnot. And then I think with that, just a little bit of forethought into fire coming down that mountain, because we have planes and everything going on. So
Yeah, no, I think that's great input, and we can definitely do that. And this is something that we'll still have several conversations with the fire marshal to make sure that I've always called it the WUI zone, but the wild urban interface, we still we got to make those, we're going to have to adhere to all of those guidelines and things. And so, that'll be a priority for sure to get his sign off on that. Couple questions I had that I'd love maybe some feedback on, is one thought that we had with these lot sizes that we are proposing is that what we have found is that there's a happy medium oftentimes with open space and also personal backyard space, and kind of how do we blend the two and make it work. Our thought originally with these lot sizes was to provide the homeowners with large lots, large backyards, something that they can feel like they've got the ability to, have a good sized backyard. And then kind of layer that with trail connectivity that then opens up to the public land and the large open space in that aspect. I just would love a little bit more maybe clarification or feedback on, we acknowledge the trail connectivity is going to be a priority, but in regards to the open space, is there maybe a little bit more conversation we could have on how do we make that a little bit of a priority for sure, while still keeping the integrity of large lots and bigger backyards, things of that sort?
I mean, I said I wouldn't talk. Sorry.
He did ask a question.
I thought the last meeting we had the larger estate lots there east of the cove. And I kind of liked the ring around trail that, that was, they were using it as a fire buffer against the forest land, but I kind of like that was on the perimeter and the fringe. In my neighborhood, to get to the canal trail, the proposal was like in some of these cul-de-sac lots, here to do like a 10-foot trail through. And then they started going through and, parking and everything. So I almost wonder, to your point, with that lower lot, maybe not pocket park, but maybe that's the trailhead.
Maybe there's a trailhead there.
And then you go right, and then you go right around, between the existing development. I don't know. It's just,
Well, we combine that.
Yeah, no,
it's just kind of answering your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to 22nd Street Trailhead in Ogden.
Yeah. And so like that almost seems like instead of going clear to the top of those cul-de-sacs and trying to do it that way, to actually, start lower and get hoofing around your property, maybe between the existing, just again, a general idea, to answer your question.
Yeah.
I would add that, I design a home here and there, and I would say that we can look at lot sizes and square footages. But I would say a majority of the lots are close to 100 feet. Some are more, some are down in the 90s. But I personally think that what people are used to seeing, we're really used to seeing 100-foot wide lots. A lot of the homes you see with the 3-car garage, the front door, the 2 bedrooms up front, you could walk into a lot of homes and your way around. But that generally fits really well on around that 90 to 100-foot frontage. Just if anyone wants to get a visualization on what the lot sizes would allow besides just the pure square footages.
Yeah.
I think you're right on that. I would say that lot 1 maybe presents itself as a nice trailhead, but you're sticking a trailhead next to somebody's house that is there, whereas a different lot within that subdivision might make a little bit more. I mean, I'm not going to nitpick here, but they would know what they're getting into when they got there, right? And
maybe it's somewhere where the detention pond
Sure.
is. But I really thought it worked out really well in the last developer's favor, I think. But I think it worked out really well for everyone just to have that buffer at the fringe of people's yards instead of in what I experienced when I was moving into my neighborhood, where they were trying to put it in people's side yards.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And just a thought there. Did you say you had any other questions for us?
No, I think,
Okay.
I think just any feedback is great for us right now.
in that case, this is still an open public hearing, and so we would invite the public if there are any online or in person, and then we'll invite you back up if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. No, in a public hearing, we don't go back and forth. And any comments made right now have to pertain specifically to this. But there will be an opportunity later.
Brent Call, a North Ogden resident. I really appreciate the discussion and the back and forth on this, and I think that's a great way to start to look at something like this. But as you guys know, I've been a little outspoken in the past on the general plan, and I would agree with Commissioner Swanson and Settlemyre. At least what I'm hearing is that there better be some pretty compelling evidence to move away from the current zoning and to put a higher density up there. And I've talked in the past about this creep that seems to be happening with respect to the general plan and approving subdivisions and different developments that, in my opinion, really haven't fit into what the general plan represents. And, I agree that there are times that needs to happen, and there's good reasons for doing those kinds of things. But we have a general plan for a purpose. And I know that, and one of the main reasons I'm here tonight is to hear the discussion about the general plan, that we need to be very careful. And there better be some pretty compelling evidence to move away from what the general plan currently represents. And so I would highly encourage the commission and the staff that if they consider something like this, that there be very, very careful consideration before moving ahead. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this item and any online?
Move to close the public hearing.
We need to invite the developer back up. Do you have any? I don't think we necessarily have to. Okay.
Well, we need a second and then a.
Yep.
vote on that.
I second.
All right, who got the second in there? Jorgensen?
Sure.
All right, Commissioner Swanson, motion to close the public hearing. Commissioner Jorgensen seconded the motion. Voice vote. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right.
We're not making any.
We're not making any decisions.
Thing.
We can kind of, I guess we can discuss, but we can also move on. I think we're pretty clear. Are we? Did you have a comment? I don't want to.
I didn't make a comment because I'm thinking about it.
Okay. Well, I think we'll see it again. So, I agree with you. In that case, we'll move to item number 8. I'd like to make a motion that we defer item number 8 to a later date.
Second.
Okay. That is altering the agenda. Just so everybody's aware. And then that moves us to item number 9, which is public comments, right?
Did they vote on the?
Oh, vote. Thank you. Vote on the, is that a count vote or an I vote?
Just a.
You can just do a voice.
Voice vote. Aye.
I'm gonna go nay.
One nay.
All right. You're out. But
Only, just because we have public that came for that specific reason, we're asking them to come back. So I'm just making my nay heard.
Okay,
thank you.
that's fair.
Appreciate that. Number 9 is public comment. Do we have anybody that would like to comment?
Trails and Recreation. I waited this long
Tell-
to hear that.
Tell us what you think.
Can we do it?
Tell us what you think.
Yeah, you can comment.
I wanted to hear about them.
Um, I suppose that the risk I've told myself that I wasn't going to interact, and I got in a little bit of trouble earlier for doing so. So I don't want to, but what that is we're going through the general plan and just kind of, Scott, do you want to talk a little bit more about this? We're going through the general plan and deciding if it's still relevant and what needs to be changed and altered.
Yep,
Okay,
so
should I sit down so you can?
no.
No, not
So
necessarily.
it's still public comments. So at your request, I'll just make a couple of comments and then please make public comments. But we have a general plan that was last text updated in 2015 with some minor updates in 2019. So it's an old general plan. It's not way out of sync with what cities do, 5 to 10 years, they start looking at it. Our general plan land use map was adopted in 2022. So that is actually really current compared to some cities along the Wasatch Front that are operating off of older land use maps. But the city council has directed the planning commission to do planning, which is what we're here to do. The general plan is one of those elements. So as an accountability measure, really for staff and for our planning commission and for everybody, we've been stepping through each individual section of the general plan, having discussions about them. And that makes sure that, I've worked here 5 years, I've read the general plan, but it's a fresh reread of it. And then we have these discussions with planning commission. So this is before any decisions are made, it's to understand what's in the current element, to begin thinking about what pieces are still relevant versus what might be updated. And then we'll go through a public process where we'll invite really everybody around the city to come and provide feedback and comments. But the process so far has been, let's all just individually step through these pieces of the general plan, these chapters. And so we're all familiar with what is written in there. But we'd love to hear your feedback. I think there's just been a lot of long meetings. And so I don't know if that's the reason for the
You want to
persist turn of the night, but
Thank you though because I mean, trails, I know the Canal Road, it's been mentioned before tonight. It's, that's a big one. If that's, organized between North Ogden City and Pleasant View, because I know and then again, all the houses going up. I, used to walk up there for exercise and now they're houses and you can't go there. And even, where Frog Rock was, that was supposed to be a park and now it's housing. So I just, I was hoping there'd be like a general overview of what this meant. So I was looking forward to that. And then the transportation plan, are those the roads, I'm guessing, the road, yeah. And so part of that, were you gonna say something?
no, go ahead.
Oh, is because of I thought the houses on the west side of 400 to 450 was to widen the road. And so I wanted to find out that as well.
Okay.
So should I sit down?
there a
and answer
question?
her?
What about the houses on the west side of 450?
Like they
So
were.
those were purchased
Those
years
were
ago.
purchased
and
using
they-
right-of-way funds.
Right, and that roadway project is going on now. The plan that is in the packet is the active transportation plan, and the way to think of active transportation is that's walking, biking, rollerblades, scootering, folks in wheelchairs. It's just,
Wheels.
it's not a
Okay.
automobiles. It's basically walking and rolling.
Okay.
And that plan, if you look through, has specific projects identified as trails in some cases, as bike lanes, as buffered bike lanes. And that's mostly focused with on-street and sidewalk infrastructure. And then that's different than the hillside trails that we have. And then that's even separated from the parks component. So if you read the general plan, each of these pieces are addressed in their own
So that
chapter and
then
section.
non-North Ogden City.
Yeah, yep, on northogdencity.gov, and then under departments, planning, and you can find the general plan, the maps, as well as the formal written document as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Brent Call, and appreciate the no vote. But I also appreciate you postponing it to a further meeting because I think we've been at it 2.5 hours and probably would not give the general plan the attention that it needs. And so I appreciate that. Maybe a suggestion that next time we put it on the agenda, it goes first or early in the agenda, and we can focus on that. and give it the attention that it should have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess my only comment would be is that my name's Doug Varner. Sorry about that.
You're right.
I guess my only comment would be is that I know when I would sit in a college class and I was learning, there was that interchange, asking questions, and teacher would say stuff and you could ask questions and clarify. And so when I come to these meetings, I'm not sure when I can ask questions, when there's discussion. And sometimes I feel like, well, here's the agenda and this is what we're going to talk about. But it's like sometimes you make those comments based on not having all the knowledge or being able to clarify or ask questions. So it'd be really nice if maybe if in the agenda or maybe if there was a notice or something that would say, hey, this is where you can ask a question. I know that living up on Lakeview, there's been a lot of comments and a lot of questions being asked about the construction. And so those are just things that are causing a lot of conflict. And if there's some way that we could communicate better and get more information of what's happening, I think it would be a lot less abrasive. And I think a lot of the people that are coming here that are my neighbors, I mean, they made me aware of it. It would just make things a lot easier if we could have some more interchange of knowing what's going on. I don't even know. People are asking me, when they found out I was coming tonight, well, how long are we going to be doing detours? I have no idea. But it also appears that I can't even ask that question in the meeting. So I'm just thinking it'd be really nice if we had some forums that we could ask these kinds of questions and get some of that feedback. Just a comment.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
With that? If one of the great ways that you can ask your question, you can imagine how long the meetings can be if we get into a question and answer. And probably the biggest difficulty is that the question and answer quickly becomes a debate, right? You've got individuals asking a question from a particular perspective. We're answering, and sometimes there's a lot of legalese, a lot of code and all that kind of thing that doesn't allow us to do a certain thing, that residents don't understand that that's why we're saying no. And it just, I mean, back in the Brent Taylor days when I was on council, we had meetings that went to midnight every Tuesday night. We were 6 hours long. And I think most people don't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. I was a younger person then. But if you go on to North Ogden City's webpage, okay, down in the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see a little window that says text my gov. And if you just simply tap on that, you can opt in and you can ask questions, text, and you can send your question in. There's also the North Ogden City official Facebook page that you can go on there and just comment, just ask a question. And it'll get answered. There are a couple of council members that monitor that. There are staff members that monitor that. And then there are also several private Facebook pages, the Unapologetically Non-Political North Ogden Facebook page, the North Ogden, Utah Community Facebook page. There's another one. You can just join those. There's 4,000 or 5,000 people that are on each of those, and ask your question. Council members monitor those. Other staff members may comment. There are others of us that have experience that will answer questions as well.
Yeah, but I think specifically the detour question is a perfect text my gov
Yeah.
type question. I would also like to comment that I think it was a little bit helpful, or no, I think it was very helpful to hear those comments sort of before we discuss that too. Although I'm not trying to make that decision, I'm not trying to solidify my decision there. I see the error, and I will be more clear about public comment in the future too. I've added a few changes there, so. I really appreciate the feedback and the public comments. Are there any more? All right, we will move to remarks from the planning commissioners. Anybody have any remarks?
I have a question for Scott. We've had a lot of comments tonight about a commercial lot. Is that coming to us anytime soon that you can give us an idea?
So the city owns a few, 2.5 acres along 450 East up to 3100 North. We've had conversations with the Planning Commission about neighborhood commercial and where those locations should go. We've looked at 3100 as a major east-west corridor. It does have the high school on one side, it's North Ogden Divide on the other. You look at the 1960s general plan that showed it was Bates Elementary actually was a commercial center and commercial marching up the hill. So staff asked the question to the city council during work session, what should this use of this property that the city owns be contemplated as? So it was not, we have a proposal for a convenience store, there should be a gas station here. It was simply the question, we're looking at the intersection of two major transportation corridors. We're attempting to look at commercial development in the city that would maintain sales tax. And so what should it be? And in some ways, right now is the time to make that decision because you're putting in a brand new 5-lane road and you would be looking at what's the water, sewer, stormwater infrastructure that should go into these lots. And our Public Works Department is asking, what should we plan for? So if it's a commercial corner or some sort of neighborhood commercial corner, that's a different water meter, different size pipe, different sewer outfall than if it's some sort of single family. And planning staff looks at, that's a 5-lane major intersection. The idea of having single family homes that back out onto that roadway seems impractical. There haven't been any land use changes or decisions made, and that would go through a public process. But I think the comment made at work session of, should we consider neighborhood commercial at the intersection of two major streets and at the location where, like, really the last stop before you go up over the divide would be, is that something we should contemplate?
So if I was concerned about that, the best path forward would be to go to a city council meeting and discuss it there in public comment, maybe?
You're the you aren't department. You are the body that plans.
Okay.
So the ultimate first recommendation would come from you
Okay.
in what this should look like. And we've been talking about neighborhood commercial. I really love the 1960 general plan, mostly because it's a hand-drawn map and I think it's really neat. And I got to unroll it one day in my office and like find it basically. But the people who built our community could see around corners. They looked at Mountain Road, they looked at 3100 North, 1050, 450 East to Lakeview. Those roadways are all on there and it was an empty hillside largely at that point. And so they contemplated a roadway network that we've largely been able to build out. They contemplated commercial uses, residential uses, trail uses that in some ways we've seen happen and in other ways we have not. And so the question about, keeping North Ogden as North Ogden, it depends on what era you were in future thinking of what that North Ogden is. Because had they vested the 1960 general plan, Bates Elementary would be a maverick right now. And that's just the way that plan was drawn. So for us, we're thinking about, should there be any neighborhood commercial going north? And just practically for city financing, it's a 3-legged stool between property taxes, sales tax revenue, and I'll call them franchise taxes, but that's your service fees, your water, sewer, garbage fees. And saying no to one thing is saying yes to another. So saying no to sales tax revenue is saying yes to higher property taxes. That's just, there are bills that need to get paid. And that's not a reason to do it in this one particular area, but between the location, leveraging the millions of dollars of investment into roadways, in looking at our major roadways as the areas that maybe some higher intensity should be, those were reasons that the staff asked the city council the question, what could the future in this area be? There's a lot of guardrails in place though. The city owns the land. It has not been rezoned. We would have to go through a public process. So it isn't as if we have a developer knocking on our door. It's really the city would be driving that decision because we're the landowner.
Okay. And hearing all the questions, I'm just going to ask a fishing question. does neighborhood commercial allow a Maverick gas station?
We have a neighborhood commercial zoning code in Title 11. We don't have a zoning map identification. It's never landed on our zoning map. So it's been part of our zoning code for 10 years, but it has never landed on the zoning map. So, no, right now it's not. The convenience stores, automotive uses are not considered in the current neighborhood commercial zone.
And did anyone go to Teddy Bears like 100 years ago? You remember
No
Teddy
way.
Bears?
Currently Straw Market.
Currently Straw Market.
Yes.
You know, that's a little more rural, but that's all, whenever this neighborhood commercial comes up, it came up on the townhomes down there on the Randall property, that little corner one. And everyone, it does give a nice spot for, you know, intermediate trips, go grab something, go get a, you know, bite to eat. It doesn't, you know, like Straw Market isn't like traffic central, but we've all been there.
Yep.
And so the basis of my question was give someone to go look up the neighborhood commercial on the website, get a little bit more bearing on what the discussion is based around. But, you know, I'm not overly opposed to any neighborhood commercial, but I am opposed to a Maverick. Does that make sense? That's
So you can.
Its current form,
but
right?
just Maverick in general, no Mavericks.
I agree, but.
That's
no,
Avengers.
I
Massive
do not.
one to me, but I'm just,
Hey,
You can judge the swimming pool participation at the swimming pool based on the number of slushies that are sold at Maverick. Like they have
Yeah.
to buy more based on how hot the weather is for the swimming pool. So it's kind of interesting. But
And
right
that's
now,
why,
so
that's why that Maverick is close to the swimming pool
Right.
So just
and not in a
circling back,
neighborhood.
It still needs to come to the planning commission
yeah.
for a
Yeah.
rezone.
yeah, you would have to do, it would require all of the land use steps. I mean.
and there is no proposed.
There's
There
nothing,
is
there's no
no
proposal.
proposal.
At all. And to say all of the entitlement steps, like it would require a general plan amendment and a rezone, and then the city council to determine the property as surplus, and then to find a developer and sell it to it. Like it has all of the steps, right? This isn't
So a proactive conversation turned into
concern.
a rumor mill.
Yeah, and people want to, I get it. I mean, they want to protect their quality of
Yeah.
life and what they see around them.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
there are
I-
concerns for sure. So it's not a decision it isn't even a decision. It was more of just a question. What would this corner look like? What should this corner look like as the city moves from 21,000 people to 40,000 people?
But as we're doing the general plan, it's something we should consider
Absolutely.
as a future consideration for the community.
Yep. And we'll ask the public's opinion on that as well. So
Yep.
it won't be any unilateral decision. It will get the whole public planning commission and then city council as the legislative body will ultimately adopt whatever version of the map and text we create.
Thank you for the clarity.
Any other comments?
I just wanted to comment, I agree that having something on the agenda, we should address that. So maybe not have something like that on the agenda when we see 3 potentially, questionable items like what we had tonight. If we have those, like tonight, we had those 3. We should have known a little bit, maybe had a little bit more foresight to not have a discussion on the general plan when we see something like that. I'm not trying to point fingers or blame anybody. I just say from here on out, if we see items on the agenda, maybe we think about tabling that so we don't have our community members wait to just see it move to another night. I appreciate your comments. I would agree with that. And at the same time, I also agree that it's not going to get the attention that it deserves this late. So thank you for your comments. And hopefully we can maybe as a group, be a little bit better on that.
I agree.
It's good feedback.
I agree. I think that, however, I think a lot of what came up tonight was the commercial development that didn't really exist. And so you know, that's hard to foresee, right? But I do think, you know, maybe less than 2 items on the agenda and we have a planning session or something, you know, we can maybe put some hard, fast rules around it. But again, you never really know what's going to come up, and that does put us in another sticky situation. But so I appreciate your comments, and as well as everyone here. Any other remarks? Okay, we'll have Scott, do you have anything for us?
Nope.
John?
That's good feedback. One thing we've talked about is maybe doing an action agenda once a month and then kind of a planning agenda, like long-term once a month, so that we get that separation. Question about whether legislative items are long-term or short-term may fall into that gray area, is unique. And then also, it's not inappropriate for people to ask questions. And if you want to respond as a group, but like Phil mentions, it's that back and forth, especially at council, it can happen where it can get really bad really quick. And it's usually what the council does is they'll write down the questions and then answer them at the end. You know, not even of the comments. Sometimes they wait till the end of the full discussion so that it again doesn't turn into this back and forth. Yeah. So, and it's, you know, it's hard. It's
I mean, that's just good to know. I mean, because there are just some, you know, the
Good.
gentleman from Lakeview, I tried guessing the best question I could maybe think he wanted to ask. Is there a convenience store or gas station proposed? So,
yeah.
you know, I think that could have kept the whole thing from getting sidetracked I mean, I think instead of criticizing the schedule, I think looking at all of us, maybe when those first comments came up and we're all sitting here not knowing what in the heck we're talking about and the citizens do, maybe we could have addressed that right then and there and had just a moment of pause and have this short conversation.
And the other thing that's a little unique and hard with this group is it's a little bit more informal and historically has been. And the public meetings are set up that anything outside of a public hearing, residents get to watch government make its decision. They're not involved in the process. And that's really hard as a resident to be in the room and feel like you're not involved. If you've ever been to the state legislature, again, outside of their hearing process, like that's the way it is. You sit there and you watch and they will not, they might not even smile at you. So, but public hearings are the opposite. That's the time when we let people talk for their 5 minutes and let the hearing go as long as it needs to for everyone to say their comments. And anyways, it's just fun process. We're probably going to do some open meetings training as council needs some, not that they've been doing bad things, but just they have to get it every year to comply with state code, just like you do. So we'll figure out some training that will help, I think, with your process. If you have ideas on that, send it to Scott and we'll train the areas where you'd like help. So.
Can I make one staff comment as well? Total side note, we have a planning intern this summer with the city that we're really excited about, Elisa Sandgren, and she's here. We're hoping to give her a really good experience, maybe potentially present here, but just wanted to introduce her. And then
Welcome.
I don't know if it's regarding agenda items, we generally know pretty well what's coming on the next meeting or two. So if that's ever a concern, I'd say it's worth talking to Scott or I if there is this many items that are time consuming.
And generally, we try to front load the application or front load the agenda with applicants who have paid for their time to come and consider those things. And so legislative items are a mixed bag. Sometimes they go quickly, sometimes they run long. We have had several rezone applications that have been long. So I would say we've had more growth pressure in the last 6 months than I've watched in the 4.5 years prior to that. And we're trying to get away from taking a bunch of the planning commission's time in administrative items. So reducing the time for things like commercial site plans that are compliant as much as possible. And staff is, determined, and we really make a strong attempt to not bring an item to planning commission that's administrative that doesn't comply, because you can't interpret the law, you can't create law. So we bring those items to you to say, it is in compliance. Maybe these are the few things that you should think about. And try to make those as expedited as possible. But that's generally what we do. We try to front load with applicants, and then these planning items that are sort of at large, not make everybody sit in the room and wait if they're trying to get a decision on, their commercial location.
Chair, can I make one suggestion?
Mhm.
This is just purely for me as I get old. Your staff reports are always wonderful and they're detailed. But as we go to make a proposal for a recommend to approve or recommend to deny, there's often some contingencies and they're spread out throughout the report.
Yeah.
And
Summarize.
if there were like an executive summary at the top where you said, this is in compliance and the staff is recommending these contingencies, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that when we go to make a motion, we can read that really easily. Obviously, we're going to go through the meat of the thing, but then we don't have to scroll through trying to remember, although it would help this old guy. I don't know about these young guys with their smart brains, but.
Yep, good. That's great feedback on how we organize the agenda. Thank you.
I'm just getting old.
That's okay. We try to have the conditions of approval at the bottom near your, stated conditions. And sometimes they're caveated with like, this is one that staff doesn't really know. The planning commission needs to weigh in on the height of this fence or location of it. But I think that's a great feedback.
It might make it easier for the residents who don't want to go through all 40 pages to get to the recommendations at the end.
Why don't they want to read it all?
I don't know, because it's the best reading I do every week.
I agree. It's really good feedback. And I know, there's planning departments that do PowerPoint presentations and break it out. And we try to simplify and write, brief staff reports that capture the issues. Sometimes they're just long. Site plan applications are long. There's a lot of code to go through. So
Just tell ChatGPT to give you an executive summary and be done. Rock.
I refuse, do not use ChatGPT. No, I'm just
I don't know if I.
No, I know I criticized a little bit. No, I appreciate what Scott and Ryan really do and their notes and their staff comments. I mean, it helps out a lot.